Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen. We will be making some banana pancakes this morning. So let me show you what you will need. We're going to need 2 tablespoons of butter, which we are going to melt, and butter is awesome because it marks the measurements for you. You're going to need a cup of milk, a cup and a half of flour, and it doesn't matter what kind of milk you use, and it really doesn't matter the type of flour you use. I know stores are kind of limited in what you can get. You are going to need brown sugar, baking powder, some vanilla, 2 bananas, and you will need an egg. So what we're going to do first is mix all of the dry ingredients, and then we're going to take all of the wet ingredients and we're going to mix those, and then we'll mash up our banana and we'll mix it all together. Okay, so we're going to start with the dry ingredients. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cup and a half of flour. And then I'm going to get a tablespoon of baking powder, not baking soda, baking powder. And when you pull that out, you don't want it to be heaping. You want it to drag the top so that it's nice and flat. And so we'll put our tablespoon of baking powder in. And the next thing I'm going to need is 3 tablespoons of dark brown. Well, I'm using dark brown sugar, but you can use light brown. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to rinse out my spoon real quick. Okay, and brown sugar, you need to pack it. So with this, just on the side of the bag, just kind of pack it in there so it's nice and tight. And you're going to need 3 tablespoons. There's 2. And 3. And I forgot to mention this in the intro, but you are going to need a little bit of salt. I use this pink Himalayan salt a lot, but you can use regular salt. Just salt is good. You need a half of a teaspoon. So a half of a teaspoon. There's your half of a teaspoon measurement. This is a grinder, so I'm just going to guesstimate a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and mix that up. So you're just going to stir it until kind of smash down the brown sugar clumps, but you want to just blend that in there kind of well. Okay, so dry ingredients are done. I'm going to set that to the side. And we're going to go ahead and do our wet ingredients. So I'm going to use a different bowl. And I'm going to start with my egg, just because whenever you crack an egg and you dump the insides out, it's always good to put it in a different container and dump it over. But if I put the egg in first, then I don't have to worry about doing that. So I'm going to crack it on the side, pop that right in, make sure I don't have any eggshells, and I'm going to get rid of that shell. Okay. So now I'm going to add my milk. And I'm going to add my vanilla. And the vanilla is just a teaspoon. So just a tip when you're making a recipe, and you see measurements for tablespoons and teaspoons, if it is a small or lowercase t, that means it's a teaspoon. If it is an uppercase t, it's a tablespoon. So if you look at the difference in size, they're quite different. This is a tablespoon, this is a teaspoon. Actually, 3 teaspoons will fit in a tablespoon, so it is important that you get those measurements correct. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and mix those together. I'm going to make sure I have that egg beaten in here. All right, and that looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and set that to the side. And the next thing I'm going to do is mash my bananas. And I'm going to do 2 for this. And I did wash my hands right before I started messing with all this food. Please be sure that you're washing your hands as you're cooking. Definitely before. So I'm just going to use a fork here. Whoops, it's kind of loud. And I'm going to go ahead and mash. Smells good. Okay, and that's pretty good. It doesn't have to be super smooth. It can have a little bit of texture to it. Okay, so I'm going to get my wet back out. Here's my wet. And one thing that I needed to add to this is my butter. And I've had that in the microwave. And this is 2 tablespoons of butter that's been melted. So I'm going to go ahead and dump that in and stir that. Okay, I'm going to dump my dry mix in and just kind of stir it as I'm mixing it in. Okay, and so then the last thing you're going to do, and you can kind of see that that's mixing in quite nicely. I'm going to go ahead and dump my bananas in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm just going to continue mixing the bananas in until everything looks nice and mixed. If you don't want to make pancakes out of this, you can definitely put it in like a mini muffin pan and make little banana muffins. Okay, so that's a good, it's thick, but that's a good consistency for banana pancakes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some of my vegetable oil in my skillet, and I'll try to bring you up closer. Turn it up to a medium-high heat, and let's see if you see my skillet. Sort of, not really. Okay, so you want the bottom of your skillet to be coated in oil, and normally I like olive oil for things that I cook, but anytime that it's something on the sweeter side, if you use a vegetable oil or canola oil, that's a little bit better. So once that warms up, give that bottom a nice coat. And again, I'm on about a medium-high heat here. You can use a lot of different things to dump your pancake mix in with. Some people use the little measuring cups. Some people use ladles. Some people use ice cream scoops. Whatever you have will work. I'm going to go with a ladle because I know where my ladle is. Okay, so I'm just going to scoop a little bit out and dump it in. I like smaller pancakes because I like the crispies on the edges. You might like a bigger pancake, so the size is totally up to you. I usually do it to where I can fit about 4 pancakes in the skillet. Okay. So we're just going to let those cook, and those are going to stay cooking until you start to see bubbles in the middle. Once you start to see bubbles in the middle, then you can check to see if it's time to flip it. So you will need a spatula. When you're cooking, pay attention to what kind of pot you're using. This is like a non-stick skillet. It's a ceramic skillet. And if I used a metal spatula, I would scrape all of the ceramic and then I would never be able to use the pan again. So make sure, this is silicone, so make sure you have something soft if you have a no-stick pan. Now if you have a cast iron skillet or if you have something like that, metal would be fine, but for this you definitely need something softer, but heat resistant. You can see they're starting to crisp up around the edges, but it's definitely not time to flip yet. And you're starting to see some bubbles, but they're not in the middle. Okay, make sure those are separated. And I could actually turn it down because I can see that the edges are getting brown, but the middle isn't bubbling yet. So I'm going to turn it down to like a low to medium heat. Starting to see some bubbles there in the middle, but not quite enough to flip. And if you don't trust the bubbles, you can kind of check it. I think I had the heat up a little bit too high. So the next batch I do, I definitely won't have the heat up so high. That's just something that you're just gonna have to adjust on based on your skillet at home. That one looks good. All right, that looks good to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. I guess I should check it. Yep, that looks good. Yep, all good. So I'm gonna turn that burner off. Okay. And we'll top it off. We'll give it some pancake syrup. And then make it extra pretty by giving it a little sprinkle of powdered sugar on top. And there you go. You got a nice banana pancake. So I will definitely make more and make sure that my heat is turned down. But those pancakes, if you want to store them later, once you cook them, you can actually let them cool and stick them in a freezer bag and put it in your freezer for a while, and the next morning pop it in the microwave, or you could use it a week later or 2 weeks later. So you can make an extra big batch and store it. But anyway, I hope you enjoy your banana pancakes.